Welcome everyone to another CTC Software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis. I'm the Director of Development here at CTC Software. And in today's session, we're going to be kind of revisiting the MEP Productivity Pack Project Startup Series. And in this session, we're going to talk about the complete workflow, start to finish, of project setup. Now, before we get too deep into this, I want to remind everybody this webinar, of course, is being recorded. So in the future, if you want to come back to this webinar, pause at different sections, review this, we encourage you to go subscribe to our YouTube channel, because that way when this gets published, you'll know that it's up there, and you'll also have access to the full playlist. And we're probably going to be linking some of the different detailed aspects that we've already covered in super deep detail that we're going to kind of gloss over today. We're going to talk about it, but we're going to gloss over it. So if you want to know more, that YouTube channel is a great place to go. Now, also, as always, for those of you who are joining us live in this webinar while it's being recorded, we do keep our eyes on that questions window. So if you have questions about this topic and you want some more detail, ask the question and I'll try to answer it live. But if I can't answer it live, we do save a QA session for the end where we dig in even deeper and talk about some of the extra topics depending on what your questions are. Without further ado, let's jump right in and talk about what's going on today. So here's the deal, the MEP Productivity Pack. We feel that this is really a powerful collection of workflows and content. And this is purposefully built for Revit. But here's the trick, you got to be able to actually use these workflows in as efficient a way as possible so you can reap the benefits and get a return on your investment in the pack. And one of the starting points for all of this, kind of the core, the foundation of all of it, is in the model startup. And if you do it right, it can save you hours of time in project setup and also just hours of frustration, potentially days of frustration throughout the life cycle of the projects. Some of our projects last multiple years, and so that can be a big deal. This first step, right now, we're going to go through from start to finish everything about project startup and talk about all the tools that we use. Now, there's certainly some nuanced, really specific use cases that you're all probably going to have in your firms that I won't be able to cover in super deep detail. But today, what I'm going to do is start with a new file, go through all of the setup that we would recommend, including view and sheet creation, and all the way into the early first steps of energy analysis, where whatever your custom workflows are going to take over. Now, some of my customers for this, I've seen them take 16 hours in project startup. I'm going to endeavor today to do this in less than an hour, but I'm going to go right start to finish, beginning to end on this. Now, technically, for those of you who are multidisciplinary firms, this technique that I'm about to do, this is not limited to just the MEP Productivity Pack. This concept, this workflow, this technically works for all disciplines. You might adapt certain aspects of it to what your discipline needs, but the concepts that I'm about to go through here, the theories, the workflow and the startup and how you access these components, this is all potentially the same for all disciplines. Just, you might do one step and skip another, or do all the steps, or it's all up to you, right? So this is the exact process we're going to go through. And I'm going to talk about each of these bullet points before I do them in detail so you know what's about to come. So we're going to establish a brand new project, and that brand new project is going to have an architectural model linked into it. Now, you could link more, but we're going to talk about just the architectural model today. We're then going to take from that model and the links, and we're going to be generating all of the overall and dependent floor plan views that we're going to need for whatever our made up scope is for this little example today using the tools that we recommend. Now, part of that's going to mean we have to copy monitor levels, and so we'll be talking about that process as well. After we generate the floor plan views and the dependent views, we're going to be needing sheets for those. We're going to generate some sheets, all the sheets that we need for construction documentation for the floor plans, and we're going to take and throw those views on those sheets and get them placed consistently from sheet to sheet so that you have a nice consistent layout. And we'll talk about some things you can do there as well. And then finally, we're going to rapidly generate all of the spaces we need for HVAC and for just view documentation, including some subdivided spaces if you want to for subdivided zoning, and name all of those. We're going to try to get through all of this setup in the little 1-hour session we have here. So first off, let's talk about starting the brand new project, the exact steps that we need to go through to establish a new model, what we would recommend as it relates in this case to the MEP Productivity Pack. But again, keep in mind, this could be done for any discipline from any template. So what is the process? Step one, I'm going to be pulling a template from somewhere. In my case, I'm going to pull my starter project, that's a work sharing enabled Revit project model, directly from the Nexus CMS. And in this case, I'm going to be using the MEP Productivity Pack subscription library. And then I'm going to save that model someplace. Now at this step, if you were going to be publishing to ACC, perfect chance to do that. I'm not going to do that today, but you could publish to the ACC if that's where your project was stored. Mine's going to be on my desktop because I'm not going to be following the best practices there, but where it goes is where it goes. At this point, I recommend that you synchronize and relinquish all the settings as the person who's establishing the model, shut it down and reopen it up so you're actually working in a local copy like you should be. I'm going to be following all these best practices today as best I can. And then finally, we're going to do some reloading of links, specifically the architecture model. And we're going to modify where the project model setup scope box is, the overall building model, so we can match whatever the architectural model position is. We're going to talk about some best practices there. Now, again, we have a webinar that goes into each one of these steps in super deep detail. Today, I'm just going to gloss over and do them so you can see it happen. And if you want to see all of the really deep detail of exactly, why and what and some of the deeper steps, go check out its related webinar that kind of talks about just this step of the project startup workflow. So we are going to be in Revit. I happen to be in Revit 2023. You can be in whatever version, anything 2020 through 25 for the templates that we have. I also have the Nexus CMS already open, and I am going to go through and use my MEP Starter pre-saved search to get me access to all of the templates that I'm going to want. At this point, I'm going to be using the MEP 23 starter project. Just going to simply load this up. This is going to let me open it up, detaching and preserving my work sets. There's, of course, other options you could choose here, but I'm going to be using open, detached, and preserve. And by the way, there is no baking show, this thing has been pre-baked. We're doing all of this live, real time, right here in the webinar. So as long as something takes, it takes. And so you're going to see everything that's going to happen. There's no video recording here. Hopefully everything works out exactly as I expect it to as well. And we don't run into any oddball issues that I wasn't expecting that would cause us to have a bit of a delay. But we're going to go through it, all of it. Now Revit, of course, in its infinite speed that it has, or sometimes lack thereof, sometimes the opening of a work sharing enabled project model detached the first time can take a second or two or 90. But ultimately here, once I'm in this project model, we're going to do the next step here, which is to save this somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and save this project model. In my case, I've actually set up a folder for myself on my desktop. It's the MEP Starter Setup Workflow Startup Webinar here. Right there on my desktop is where it's going to go. And what I have also here already set up, just so you know, is I have a links folder, and my architectural model is set up there in that folder. Now I clicked on it on purpose to steal its name, because I'm going to use the same naming convention that the architectural project model uses, but I'm going to save it here in my main folder and have my links be in a subfolder. My personal choice, you can do whatever you want there in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and it is going to save this model wherever it's going to exist, in this case on my desktop. Now, in my case, I am intentionally leaving the CMS open because in the future, one of my other steps might be to go grab additional things like additional typical details or typical sheets. So I tend to always leave my CMS open 100% of the time. And I usually just float it off onto a separate monitor. In this case, it's just sitting behind my Revit session here. Hopefully it's not causing any visual glitches. Typically it doesn't. So this model's now been saved. The next step here is to do a sync and relinquish. compact everything, give up control of everything you own. Since you're the detacher, you of course own all the user created work sets. We want to make sure we get rid of that control right away. And then the final thing that I like to do here is I like to close this model, because right now I'm working in the central file, and I reopen it. And then you can typically just click the shortcut here, even though it's not technically best practice. Usually it's best to do open. I'm going to cheat, and it's going to create me a local copy of that model. Now, I technically have an existing copy of this because, of course, I practiced this beforehand. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. It's going to generate for me a new local copy of that project. Since it was open, detached, saved as a central, it's now going to make wherever my local copies go, they go. And you'll know it's a local copy because it has my Revit username here at the top in that file name as it's opening it up. So once this model reopens, the next two steps here is to reload the architectural link and to move the model scope box so that it surrounds my building correctly and resize it per the architectural list. So I'm going to go ahead and do insert, manage links. Because of how I have my starter project set up, I don't have my users ever place any links. I simply have them reload from for the placeholders that already pre-exist, and then just don't load something if it's not needed, right? So I'm going to go ahead and reload the architectural model since I need that. The other ones I'm just going to leave unloaded for now, and in the future, if I get them, then I will load them, okay? And the instance needs coordination review. That's just because there was already a link placed, and at some point there was some copy monitor. That's going to be okay. We're going to handle that here in the next little step when we do the proper copy monitor here in the correct way. And I'm going to go ahead and okay this, and I should see the architectural model work here, except for I think when I opened it up, I didn't save it in a way that automatically opens all the work sets. And so I'm going to open all the work sets now so that they are visible to me. It actually warned me that the architectural work set was not opened. So with this architectural model, their base point is set however the architect's base point is set. And one of the things that I always do is I use whatever the architects have done. If they've got their base point at 100 and they've moved it up, I move mine up. If they have it set at 0, but they named it to be 100, it's whatever. It's whatever they do, I follow. I never, ever modify the architect's model or position in my project once I've linked it, because when they cross-link my project, I want it to just link in origin to origin. So I link it, there's origin to origin, and I leave it in place. And here's the cool thing here, in these model setup floor plan views over here, I will see typically wherever the architect's model is. This view is kind of set up so it shows everything top to bottom in a project. You could also use the roof plan view, which shows sort of infinite in all directions. You could see kind of what's going on there too. If you didn't see it here in the level 1 floor plan, you would almost certainly see it here. And again, the reason we do this is so that wherever their model is, I leave it where it is. You never want to grab the architect's project model, unpin it, and move it within your consulting engineer model. That's just not best practice. So what I'm going to do is take my building overall scope box here. It's this main scope box in the level 1 floor plan view. It's actually labeled the shared MEP scope box for the building. I'm going to take this scope box. I'm going to take the elevation markers that exist out here. And there's the other one, the 2 section markers that exist out here. And I'm going to move all of this so that it surrounds the architect's building. So I'm just going to start right about here-ish. I'm going to do a move command, MV, grab about there, snap to about there. The actual boundary doesn't really matter. If I want to exactly match their building, I can certainly do that. But I'm just kind of moving this around. This, by the way, these pop-ups that we're seeing here, this is a warning popping up because I have the Nexus Ally toolkit loaded, and it's warning me that I'm potentially moving levels and stretching where their physical position is. I'm potentially moving pinned objects, and so that might or might not be best practice. So it's just warning me against doing something that perhaps I might regret, which is great for end users. In my case, as the person who's setting this project up, I might see a few warnings that I don't necessarily want to see, but it's going to be okay. So now, when I move this, everything that I moved, if I reselect this and do move again, notice how I am not constraining and not disjoining. So when I moved my elevation markers, it didn't disconnect them. Nothing got disconnected from anything. This scope box in my template, in my project setup, is actually linked to all of my other floor plan views that all pre-exist. So like my lighting ceiling plan here is associated to the building scope box. And when I move this in my project setup, it actually moved the boundary for all of these other views. It did it really quickly, but it moved it for all those other views so that all of their boundaries across my entire project are 100% identical. And if I'm doing a building project that has one level and a roof, then my project setup at this point is done almost, because all of my views already pre-exist, and that's fantastic. But here I've just got, you know, my whole building setup for the most part ready to rock. Now there's one more thing that I like to do here, and that is I like to also copy from the architect's model if they have enlarged scope boxes. I like to copy them into my project so that I can use them for my enlarged area plans, like area A and area B that I know this building has. So what I'll do for that, in my case, I have some 3D views that are set up here, and I'll use this building 3D reference view, which isn't actually set up for me to see scope boxes, but I'm gonna modify this real quick by enabling temporary view properties. I'm gonna go into my visibility graphics, tell it to show annotation categories, specifically scope boxes, and it's gonna let me see my scope box in here, but it's also gonna let me see the architect's scope box out there. And so I can simply tab select their scope boxes in their building, use copy and paste, and now I have their scope boxes in my project that I can use for my view boundaries. I'm not gonna stretch and move their scope box. I'm just gonna leave it exactly as it is. I don't care where theirs is. I just want my scope boxes to exactly match theirs so that my area A and their area A looks effectively identical. Now I could, if I really wanted to get super picky about this, copy their building overall scope box as well. I think they've got one here. If I tap, yeah, they have a building scope box, a building overall. I'm not gonna copy theirs because I have so many other views in here that are already pre-linked to my building overall. What I would probably do is just stretch my building overall to theirs if I really needed it to match. For my purposes, I'm okay because I think it's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that view. It'll just reset itself the next time I save and close. But now I have in my floor plan these two scope boxes for the area A and B. And again, if I really wanted to make this match, I could grab this scope box and stretch it down, stretch it over to match the edges of the area A and B scope boxes if I really cared. In my case, I don't, I'm fine. I'm just gonna leave it as it is. For my purposes, I think it'll be all right. Now, I like having my final little bit of setup that wasn't in my notes, but I like having my cover view have sort of a view of the floor plan of the building, which is actually this model X-ray vision view right here. And it's kind of currently off-centered. I could move it and I could move the title if I really want to, and that's typically what I do. I'll unpin this. It warns me that I shouldn't be unpinning views that are on sheets, and so it's telling me about that. And I can move this up on my sheet. Maybe I'll nudge it up just a little bit here and I can grab the view title and stretch that down over here. That works great. Or you can delete it from the sheet and just redrag it back over and it'll reset the view title and position, and I can then position it exactly where I want it. Whichever way works for you, that's great. But in my case, this will work fine. And just because I don't want any other user repinning it or doing something squirrely, I'm gonna go ahead and repin this so that they can't accidentally move it without making a choice in a dialog because of ally. Now, ultimately at this step, after each of these major steps, it's usually a good idea to do a sync to central and give up control of things. That's exactly what I'm gonna do here and let that finish while I jump back over to the PowerPoint here. We're gonna talk about the next major step. So I've set up the main model. I've got the links in there. Everything is generally placed exactly as I would want it to be for the building boundaries and things like that. But next, what I need to do is generate the actual floor plans. And there's some prerequisites that I have to do before I can actually generate the floor plans themselves. So first, I have to copy monitor some levels from the architecture model. That has to be done. I have to get their levels. And so we're gonna go through that process. I have to get the scope boxes, which note, I actually cheated for that and I already did that step. So I'm not gonna do that step here. I already did it in the previous little collection there. Then I'm gonna be using View Creator so that I can generate all the floor plans, the main plans, the enlarged master plans, and the dependent plans for the areas A and B for all my different levels in my building. So I'm going to be doing the generate of the overall, the creating of the enlarged, the dependent views, little views right there. I'm going to generate all those floor plan views, and I'm going to do it as quickly as I possibly can. Now, this step usually organically grows throughout the life cycle of the project. Naming conventions can be really inconsistent. And so I like to get this all done in one step, all at once, all kind of quick, complete, and ready to go. And again, we've got a webinar that talks exactly how to do all this. And I would recommend going and taking a look at that if you want to know every one of the glorious details of how all of this works. But over here in Revit, to be able to do this, I'm going to go ahead and use my section view here, my north-south section or my east-west section. It doesn't really matter which one I use. I'll use one of these so that I can make sure that my levels in my project align with the architect's levels. Right here, for example, you'll see I have a level 1 of my own, and right behind that happens to be the architect's level 1. Now, if their building was up at 100, I would simply take my level 1 and move it up to their level. That's what I would do, just move it up. Similarly to what I'm going to do right here for my roof level. I've already got a roof level here. I want to use their roof level, so I'm simply going to align to their roof level, my roof level. It's going to snap it up there. I'm done. That's exactly what I needed to do. Now it's ready to go, and I'm ready to do my next step in copy monitor because I still need basement 2, 3, and 4. And I want my level 1 and their level 1 to be copy monitored, or monitored in this case, and I want my roof level to be monitored with their roof level, and I probably want my name to match their name. And so to get all of this to match up, I'm simply going to use the copy monitor command. Now this particular step takes a second, so I'm going to go ahead and get it started. Where is it at here? Collaborate, there it is, copy monitor, and I'm going to select the architect's link, check my options to make sure, yeah, of course it doesn't have the right setting here. I want to use their 1/4 inch head. I want to reuse if the levels exactly match. That's why I aligned my levels here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a copy, multiple, select all their stuff here, filter out anything that is not a level. And I'm also going to deselect the parapet because I don't care about that one. I don't need it. I'm not building any views for it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And this is going to go through the exercise of copy monitoring. Now this, of course, takes a while. I don't understand exactly why it takes so long. Did I deselect walls? I think I did. Yeah, I think I did that step. I'm not sure exactly why Revit takes quite so long to do copy monitor, but for whatever reason, it always seems like it does. It's usually pretty obvious when it's done. The wheel will stop spinning for one, but my level R here is actually going to get renamed to roof level. So it should update that here in just a moment when it's all done. My level 1, which is capital L, lowercase evil, will become all caps as well, and it'll be called level 1. Because of how I name my views, by the way, it doesn't matter what the actual level name is because I use an abbreviation on my levels so that they always sort the same way, regardless of what naming convention the architecture team tries to use. So if they're like, roof level or level roof or, main level, ground floor, level 1, whatever they want to call it, I don't care. I always use the same naming conventions in my models. We'll show you how you can set that up here in just a moment. So looks like it finished that up. I should have those levels now live in my project model. And one of the things that I also like to do right here is I like to take my levels. Let's filter this out to just levels, the 6 that exist in my project live. And I tell all of them to associate with my building scope box. And that way in every single view across my entire project, these levels will all have the exact same boundary and extents. That just saves me all kinds of trouble. Okay, now that I've got that done, the next thing to do is to generate all the floor plans that I need. Now I have some model setup views here for 1 and roof, and I might need some model setup views for some other floors if there's some special conditions going on. I also have a bunch of load calculations inside of here that I might need for HVAC for my spaces in a little while here. If I'm doing existing models, I might need some existing floor plans inside of here. I'm going to skip these views, but you could generate the existing views. I have a lot of design views that I like to create so I can work and see things in a way that makes sense for me while I'm working, but that's different than the views that I might need for things like construction permit or coordination views to coordinate with other design team members outside of my Revit project model. there's all kinds of views that I like to generate inside of here. And for the building, now that I have the levels, I want to make all of them. I want them all named. I want everything to be all kinds of good, and I don't want to do it all by hand. And so what I use is View Creator. This helps me establish an explicit naming convention. Now, again, if you want to know more about how View Creator itself works, we always have, intro videos to how to use the exact tool itself and what everything exactly means here. But in my case, for my views, oh, hey, look at that. The architect was actually using a similar abbreviation system to what I was using, which is great because now my abbreviations are already set. This is usually something that I'll do is if their name is level 2 or second floor, then I'll put 02 on here, but theirs already has that, which is great. That's glorious. Otherwise, I would just override that with whatever I want it to be. And this is something that will be copied, but is not monitored. So what Revit monitors is the level, name, and position, but it will initially copy in all the parameter values that come from the architect's model. So in this case, it's actually copying in the abbreviations, which is kind of convenient. Now, the way that I like my views named typically is the view template name hyphen the level, and then any other suffixes that need to be inside of there. And so I've set up my View Creator already to actually match that. So I can set up for, in my case, basement level. I don't need level 1. Level 1's already there for everything. So basement level and level 2, 3, 4. Roof level I also already have in all of my views. My projects have that because every project I've ever worked on has at least one level and a roof level. So those already pre-exist, so I can ignore those. Everything I'm doing today is going to be new construction. Everything I'm doing today is going to be based on the building overall, at least for these views for now. And in both cases, I don't really want new construction or building suffixing any of my view names. So I'm just simply checking the no abbreviation option there. Now, all I have to do is go through the exercise on the left-hand side over here of simply checking all of the boxes for the different types of views that I'm going to need. So if I have, demolition plans, I will choose those types of views. If I have new construction floor plans, then I'll choose the new construction views. And I can expand this out a little bit if I want to see a bit more about this, but I want things like my analysis views and my working views. I want my power construction document plans and my working views that go with that. I don't need site because I've already got my site views. I probably do want systems if I'm doing low voltage. And again, I like my working views, maybe fire protection, maybe some design views for that. I probably want all my coordination views inside of here. So I can go ahead and check that. Let's get all these ones that I want actually. Maybe a model setup views for some of these, some analysis views, right? I'm just going through and checking the different view types where I need these floor plan views made for these levels in this phase with my certain building scope box. So design views, floor plan views, I don't know, zone diagrams for sure, I want those. Maybe I want some piping views inside of here for some friction loss, velocity diagrams. I've already got roofing plans, so I don't need that. Let's see, let's get down and do some plumbing. Maybe I want some domestic water and waste plumbing. Maybe I want to have, let's see, some velocity views again, fixture units again, maybe some design views. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That's pretty much most of what I want. So I can go ahead and add all of these to my list and not suffixing them yet with enlarge. Let's just add all these to the list. This is going to put a bunch of views in my list for the basement level, the underground level, 2, 3, and 4. Again, 1 and roof already exist in my environment. Now, I also know that I'm going to be doing some enlarged plans. So I'm going to clear everything, clear all views, and I'm going to go back through and choose for my lighting floor plan, for my power floor plan, for my systems plan, for my HVAC floor plan, not my design views, just the main floor plans. For my DVW and domestic water plans here, I want to have an enlarged master. So I'm just going to call this out as enlarged, and I'm going to, again, associate this to the building scope box and add those enlarged plans to my list, and it's going to go ahead and put them in this list as well. So I have a whole bunch of views. Some of them are design, some of them are setup, some of them are construction document. And I'm going to tell this to create all of those floor plan views. Now, again, whatever disciplines you need, whatever view templates you need for which views need to be created, you can go ahead and use that, and it'll use whatever your abbreviation is you set up. So if you've got some naming conventions on your view template that don't work super well with your naming convention, put the abbreviation on, and it uses that name part as a part of your view, as you can see down here. I got a little bit lazy today, and I only did floor plans, but I know a lot of you probably going to want to do ceiling plans. So like for your lighting fixture plans, you're probably going to want to do a ceiling plan for that instead of a floor plan. Great, do that. Do ceiling plans for your view type instead of, your view templates instead of floor plan view templates. Maybe you want to use ceiling plan view template. Great, use that in collaboration with your ceiling plans. This tool can help you do that. I'm just doing this in just floor plans today for sake of time, just so that we can get through this. You can kind of see what the workflow looks like. So this just built for me 136 floor plan views, named every single one of them, and because of my view templates, grouped them in my project browser exactly where they belong. That's very little effort for me just checking boxes. And if I wasn't talking through the whole thing, it probably would have taken me even less time. Now over here, I'm going to go ahead and filter for anything that ends with enlarged. Here's all my enlarged floor plan views right here for the different, I didn't create my enlarged plans for level 1 domestic water, and I probably should have done that for a couple of these DVW level 1s. I'm not going to have level 1 floor plan views for those at this point. I could always come back and make them, but I'm going to go ahead and build my area A and B floor plans. You know what? No, let's do this right. Let's do this right. Let's do the roof level and the level 1 for all those views as well. This won't take very long because of how fast this actually works. And we're going to go ahead and create those views too. Why not? This is going to build me those floor plan views. So I had 136 in the first place. There's 12 more. So we got what, 140 some odd, 148 floor plan views that it built. Great. Now if I go back to my dependent views, we have all the level 1s and roofs in this list as well. If I sort by name, you'll see them all kind of grouped together. And I can simply duplicate as dependent for all of those enlarged floor plan views for area A and B. And I can create those views. Simple. This is straightforward, right? I'm just simply checking some boxes, and it's going through the exercise of building and duplicating as dependent and naming and associating scope box. There's 72 more floor plan views here. They're all built out. My project is effectively ready for me to go to the next step of building out my sheets. Because up here in construction permit, lighting, floor plans, look, I've got my basement level and I've got my basement level enlarged. I've got my second level, I've got my second level enlarged. I've got everything that I need for me to go on and into the next step and to begin creating my sheets. I didn't have a level 1 floor plan because generally speaking, my lighting floor plans are probably ceiling plans, and yeah, you're gonna see them here, of course you are. So that's where I should have done my level 1, is in the ceiling plans. But again, like I said, I got lazy. So let's go through the exercise now of getting into the next step. Here, we need to create sheets for all these construction document views. Not all my views, just my construction document views. And so we're gonna go through and create sheets. Now, what I like to use for this is Spreadsheet Link. There's 2 different sheet creation templates, and you can run one of them, depending if you wanna see your existing sheets that already are there, or if you wanna just have it blank and just make a bunch of new sheets. I'm gonna use this to generate all of my placeholder sheets. I'm gonna take those placeholder sheets once I generate them all and turn them into real sheets in Revit with specifically the title blocks that I wanna use sheet by sheet. And then I'm gonna turn around and place some of the views that I have on some of those sheets. And finally, I'm gonna then use Sheet Assistant to refine the view placement so I can lazily just drop views onto sheets quickly, and then I can refine all of them and get them all to be placed in exactly the same way. So that's my process here for the next little step. So for this, back in Revit, if I show you, let's see, I'll use my lighting floor plans for some of this so we can actually see this happen here in lighting, and I'll do my basement through roof level views here. I'm gonna collapse my design views. I'm gonna collapse my model setup because I don't need that anymore. If you look in electrical, I don't have any electrical sheets other than my title sheet, which exists in here. That's how I always have the same title sheet, so I pretty much leave that in. All my disciplines, for that matter, they're all the same. They have a title sheet, and most of them have a specs sheet that I can use, but they don't have any normal floor plan layout sheets at all. None, 0. So I need to build all of that out and then get my views onto those sheets. And that can take a little bit of time if you're doing it manually. Well, I'm gonna use Spreadsheet Link here to generate all of my sheets. Now, again, we have a webinar exactly how to build up what I'm about to show you here. So if you wanna do this, we also distribute these settings directly in the CMS. So you could download them and just use these settings straight away. They work really well with our template. I'm gonna load some settings from a file. I'm going to be over here in my spreadsheet link little settings area, and I have some sheets setup stuff. There's two different sheet setup templates. One is the no sheets, so it actually doesn't take these sheets that exist in my project and show them in the list. And one is with sheets. This can be used here to show the sheets you've already got for naming convention starting points, or you can also use this in the future if you want to add to your sheet set and guarantee you don't have duplication. For me, right now, I'm going to start with the no sheet settings right here. This knows how to open up a pre-existing Excel spreadsheet, a whole bunch of workbooks, and it's going to replace some of the data here for levels, for views, for some of the settings that exist inside of there. I'll take you through and show you a little bit about what's going on in here. But again, if you want to know more about how this is configured, we have a webinar that talks about how this was actually built. For my roof level sheets, when I actually generate them, I want them to be prefixed with a 5 or have 5 be a part of their numbering for this particular project. So basement level will be 0 sheets, 1 sheets are actually 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. That's how I have my numbering set up. For the actual settings over here, depending on what discipline they're a part of, they will know how to sort in my project browser and in schedules. They also know what sheet series they are. So my 100 series, for example, is power. My 200 series is lighting, and so on. That's how I have mine set up. Again, you can customize this however you'd like. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this entire file out someplace. Let's get over here to where I have this saved on my desktop. And I'm going to save it right here, call it out as sheets, sheet creation or something. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to save it as an XLSM. This is a macro enabled workbook, which helps me take all the information, the levels, the views, the settings, and create the sheets that I need from those things. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up in Excel. And in Excel, over here on my Sheets tab, ultimately, I want to run the macro that says build my sheets. And so it's going to go ahead and do that. It's going to take all of my different views that I have that are construction document style views. It's going to build me a sheet, set my sheet order based on my settings. It's going to set my sheet numbering based on my rules for levels and for settings. And then it's going to also give it a name based on the view that's ultimately going to be going on that sheet. Now, because I have more views than I actually needed, there's some duplication. And in Revit, you cannot have 2 sheets of the same sheet number. Like right here, I have a roof level fire protection plan, and I have a roof level fire sprinkler demolition plan. Well, I'm not actually focused on the demolition here, so I could take this and say, well, this shouldn't be an FD, this should just be an F511, but there's still a duplicate there someplace here. Roof level fire protection, roof level fire protection. So I actually have more views than I actually need. So one of the things that I need to go through is delete some of these duplicates inside of here so I don't have a bunch of extra duplication. I'm just going to go ahead and delete a few of these that I know that I'm not going to need, just because, let's see, roof level, mechanical roof plan, I probably want that one. Let's see, level 1 piping floor plan. Yep, I'm going to delete this guy, delete this. There's just a few of these I'm going to have to go ahead and delete or renumber them to something else. And as I get rid of some of these that are actually duplicates, this one here is a stupid name, HVAC ceiling plan on the roof. I don't know why I have a roofing ceiling plan, but that's fine. We'll delete that one. You'll notice that as I get rid of that one, this up here turns green because I don't have a duplicate anymore. There's still a few of these that have some extra duplication. So I'm going to go ahead and clean those up. Make sure I have no duplicates. Okay, we're good. There's no pink showing up here. It's just all green sheets. So I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring those sheets into my project. So I'm just going to open a spreadsheet, which is going to replace everything here. And it's going to be an XLSM spreadsheet that I saved. There we go. I'm going to apply this active worksheet to my project and let it build me all those sheets. So everything that's in this list, it's going to make it with these discipline properties, these sort orders, everything's going to be good. So 125 sheets were just made in my project for me to be able to use. That's pretty easy. It's just me using a spreadsheet pretty quickly to make sure that everything is all good. That macro, by the way, that is embedded within the spreadsheet. The XLSM is a macro worksheet. And as I save it as that, it goes ahead and makes that macro enabled for me when I'm in the Excel space. Again, if you want to know more about how I built that worksheet, There's an entire webinar that talks about exactly how I set all of that up. I would encourage you to go take a look at that. But we'll also take a look at that more in detail at the QA session if there's more questions about that. Now let's take a look at my sheets. None of my sheets were actually made here. Oh, Sean, that's disappointing. Well, this is why they weren't made. If I go to my electrical title sheet here, look at this. If I click my electrical title sheet, this is the electrical specific title block. Actually, if I go to my specifications sheet, I think this is actually a real one. Yeah, 22 by 34 title block electrical. And if I go to my HVAC specifications over here, this one is, well, that one says reload again as well, but it's a mechanical specific variation. So because I have different title blocks that I'm using per discipline, perhaps there's different signature blocks inside of there. I didn't make my title blocks with my sheets. What I do instead is I do new sheet from here, and I can tell it specifically 22 by 34 electrical title block, grab all of my electrical sheets here that exist, including my demolition sheets. Apparently I had some of those still left, and I can tell it to generate all of those sheets, and it will use specifically the electrical title block that I had set up in my project, or that I just loaded in. Because you might be loading custom title blocks on demand project by project, depending on what architecture firm you're working on, whatever. So instead of me pre-specifying what title block it is, I just choose it after the fact. It's just as fast for me, honestly. So there's all my electrical sheets. Now, if I want to do the rest of my fire protection, mechanical, plumbing, they're all going to use that mechanical title block. So new sheet here, once again, 22 by 34 title block mechanical in this case, and I'll just grab all the rest of my sheets that are here in my placeholder list and tell it to generate them. Because of the properties that are pre-specified on those placeholders, because of how this is made, it knows to group in the correct area. It knows for my actual sheets list to sort them based on the grouping they're supposed to be in, because every one of these knows over here, sheet order 23.1. It knows that over here, 21.1, because of the settings that were in my file. So this makes this really easy for me to get all my sheets ready to rip pretty fast, right? So now let's go through the exercise of putting some views on some sheets real quick here. So I'm going to go to my level 1, let's see here, E111. There's my demo floor plan. I don't really want the, well, it's fine. I'll just use this one here. So I've got my level 1 power floor plan, my demolition floor plan. I don't like the fact that it's called demolition, so I'm going to steal the name here, copy that, and I'm going to rename this so that it's got a more appropriate name for it being a traditional floor plan here. So paste that level 1 power floor plan. So it's using the level name. Oh, I guess I have level 1 twice in there. Look at that. It's using the level name and then just a descriptor from what type of view is going to go here, power floor plan in this case. And there's also power floor plans for area A and area B as well. So I'm going to be taking all of these and throwing some proper views onto these sheets. How do I do that? Well, I do it really lazily. So if this is power, so let's get rid of lighting here for a second. Let's actually go to the power floor plans. Power floor plan, this is the basement level. So I'm going to take basement level and just throw it out here. I don't care where it goes on the sheet. Does not matter to me. Here's my level, that was supposed to be level 1. Silly Sean, do level 1. Here we go. Throw this guy out there. Let's use the basement level as well. Since I was already there, we'll take basement level and put that on a sheet. Doesn't matter where I put it. I don't care. I'm just getting it onto the sheet. That's the most important thing here. Level 2 power floor plan, same thing. Just drag and drop. Don't matter where it goes. I don't care. Level 3, one more time. We'll just do a couple more of these real quick so you can see how this works. Level 4, drag and drop that. Final one here, roof level power plan. We'll take the overall roof power plan, which doesn't have any enlarged views. And this one, I'm going to get a little bit specific. I'm going to place it right there so the view title is right here at the bottom. It's kind of lined up acceptably. I could nudge it around if I really wanted to position this. If I wanted some other views out here as well, like general notes, I would throw them on the sheet, okay? So, but this, I'm just going to do the one view in this case. One sheet that I have, my roof level sheet, is pretty good. I like its layout. The rest of my sheets out here, they're all absolutely rubbish. They are terrible. I wasn't careful about where I placed it. Ultimately, I want all of my floor plan views in the same exact location across all of my sheets. This is where Sheet Assistant comes in. So I'm going to go to Sheet Assistant, and I'm going to do it just for this one series. But what I would normally do during my project setup is I would drag all of my main floor plans to their main related sheet. I would drag all of my enlarged area A's or B's to their regular A or B sheet, and I don't care where it gets placed. Irrelevant. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and say, okay, for my E15 sheet, which is my power floor plan here, I'm going to take this horizontally, the top left, come on now, there we go, top left of my view right there, wherever that's placed on that E151 sheet, this one that's correct, I'm going to replicate that against all of my other E100 sheets in this case. You could do it against all of your sheets if you really want to, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it against all of these individual sheets. So we got 2, 3, 4, 5 if I want to, doesn't matter because they're all basically the same. And just apply the position of this floor plan's top left corner across all those other sheets. Now, if I go to those sheets, look at this. Before they were all completely different. Now they are all identical. They are the exact same across every one of these sheets. I didn't have to worry about manually placing these in some really nice location. I didn't have to manually worry about guide grids and getting, 130 floor plan views to align across all these sheets. I just said, hey man, top left corner, that's exactly where I want it to be. Every one of my other sheets make the top left corner the same, and I'm done. It's super simple. So with my setup, I just use Sheet Assistant to refine that view placement. I place all the views on sheets myself. I drag and drop them on there, whatever views I need. And then from my one template sheet for my overall floor plans and maybe one template sheet for my enlarged plans that I set up really well, the rest of those they just work, okay? So, and then, oftentimes I get a question from people. They're like, well, yeah, but Sean, does the actual floor plan line up across those sheets then? 100% yes. And you want to know why? Because every one of my floor plans, when I was creating my views, they're all based on the exact same scope box. Their boundary, 100% identical. They are all the exact same boundary. So their top left corner is the same. Their bottom left corner is the same. They're all the same boundary. So when I place them onto sheets and I use that top left corner to be consistent, you can 100% have trust at this stage in the project that they are all going to line up. They're on the sheet. I am done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. My sheets are set up and I can now do design and construction documentation, and my sheets are generally perfect. They're ready to go. It's great, okay? Now let's talk about the final step. This is one where I'm not going to use any custom tools, but for those of you who do HVAC who do work with spaces, one of the biggest frustrations I find is in the creation of the spaces. And Autodesk has actually gotten pretty good here. So if you don't know this, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build all the HVAC spaces and then a couple of tips that you can use. So the first thing is we're going to create spaces for each level. I've got views in my project that are purposefully set up for this task. I'm going to remove any unnecessary spaces because the out-of-the-box Autodesk tool actually does often create unnecessary spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those, and I'll show you how I'm going to make that choice. I'm going to divide large spaces. If I'm doing HVAC zone analysis or actual energy analysis on the building, I'm going to divide some of the large spaces probably for different zone control and zone analytics. I'm not going to get into building zones. I'm just going to show you how I would generally do that. And I'm doing that intentionally before I renumber and rename my spaces. And then, and this is a step I'm not going to do today, I would do the generate zones, okay? So what we're going to do to generate these spaces, I'm going to use my level 2 as my setup here. In my views, I very specifically did build out my load calculations for the HVAC. These are some of the views that I built with the view creator early on. Now, these don't go on sheets. They are there for me to be able to view and understand my model better. So if I go to my zone diagram for level 1, I can go up here to analyze and I can create a bunch of spaces really quickly. And with these spaces, I'm basically going to be saying, take all these spaces, make them go up to level 2, and automatically place all the spaces for anything that's enclosed in my building model. Fantastic. Built me 79 spaces. I don't care what they are, where they are, or even if they're stupid spaces inside of column pilasters. Does not matter. I let it rip and I let it do a thing because that's what I wanted it to do. I would do the exact same thing on my level 2. Space, tell it to go up to level 3 with a 0 offset, place all the spaces automatically, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat, floor to floor. This is 84 spaces. It doesn't take very long to rip through and build out all of these spaces. That's really easy. What is not really easy is identifying the spaces where there isn't actually a real need for the space. Like this space right here, this space 96 is kind of silly. It's kind of silly because there's no room that backs this space up, and there's no need for this space to actually exist. But Revit builds it because it's within an area in my project. Now, yeah, I know that with the automatically create spaces, there's some options where you can say, don't create the space if dimensions are such and such or whatever. That doesn't always handle everything because my pilasters inside of here and my closet space over here, they're about the same. And I wouldn't necessarily want to get rid of something just because it's small. Sometimes that small space is meaningful and I want to count it. So, but sometimes I don't. So what I do, my little sort of litmus test, is I go over here into my schedules. I have some schedules that are pre-built, in this case for mechanical, for HVAC, wrong, for ventilation, HVAC load calculations, and I have a space load summary right here. If I open up this particular schedule, it shows me just a list of spaces and some data on it. Well, I like to use this schedule for its intended purpose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this particular schedule and I'm going to steal it for the purpose of naming, for the purpose of removing some stuff. So this is my space validation schedule. You can call it whatever you want. It's just a design or load calcs or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to modify this thing a little bit. I'm going to go into its fields and I'm going to strip away quite a bit of stuff that I don't need. I'm going to strip away all the stuff except for room name number, the name, and the area, basically. Everything else I don't care about. So everything else is going away. I'm also going to go into the formatting, or rather, yeah, the formatting here and tell room name and number to actually not be hidden. And then I'm going to make sure that it sorts with the room number at the top. When I do that, you're going to notice a whole bunch of spaces in here that are all blank. And then it starts down here with the 101 receptionist for the rooms. Well, basically what I'm going to do is grab all of these spaces inside of here that are basically garbage, and I'm going to delete them. So go ahead and cancel that little save request. 92 spaces are going to get deleted from my model. Great. It leaves me all the ones that actually have architectural rooms that back them up. And that makes me all kinds of happy because now in my HVAC zone diagram, all of those spaces inside of here that are unnecessary, that really aren't accounted for, they're all gone. Now I can place them back if I really want them, but they're effectively all gone. And now you can go inside of here and start to divide up any spaces you want. Like this is one massive space. I'm probably not going to heat and cool this space the same. In Minnesota, where I am, this western-facing face is going to get sun differently than this eastern face over here that doesn't have a south-facing face. It's going to heat and cool. This side's going to get a lot warmer in the afternoon than this side is. This side's going to be a little bit warmer in the morning, right? So I probably want to divide these up into little micro zones inside of here. And I'm going to do this intentionally before I take you through the space renaming little step here, because I want the space to match whatever the architect's space name is. I want the number probably to match whatever their number is, but I don't want to necessarily have, this be all one big old space. So I'm going to do some space separation here. I'm going to get a little lazy. I don't really need to be this perfect. You guys can do whatever you really want for how you're going to divide your spaces up out here. Let's just say I come down over here, whatever. There we go. Maybe this space, this zone is going to be divided up into something over here. I don't know. You do you. You're the engineers. You guys can kind of make your minds up how you want these individual spaces to be divided. This is almost a fairly significant break here, so I can divide that up. Maybe I divide this up here, whatever. That'll be good enough for now. So I'm going to actually place a couple of extra spaces out there that I know that I'm going to want. So I'm going to use the same exact rules. Go up to level 3, 0 offset, drop in a space maybe here, 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 and one over here on the east side of the building. Okay. Maybe I would divide this into 2. I don't know. You do you. It's your design model. But ultimately here, oh, actually, this is another squirrely thing. This particular model is really rubbish. So this is terrible. I'm going to do one more little space separator here on purpose because This little space here is actually its own space, honestly. So do a space inside of here, probably an office building. I don't know, whatever it is. Let's go through and get these all to rename, renumber. Autodesk recently released this space naming and it got better over the years. So with this, I'm gonna do names and numbers for everything, all 76 spaces, and it's gonna copy the name and the number directly across. Now, these ones out here, they're all a part of the same room from the architect. So I'm just gonna hit okay. It's gonna be okay because it is gonna tell me that some of these have duplicate numbers, which is kind of squirrely. But it is actually giving them, unique numbers over here. If they are truly within the same room, it automatically suffixes it with a 0.1, a 0.2, a 0.3, 4, and 6, and 5 over here. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty great. On my level 1, somebody was kind of a little lazy, and there are some actual duplicates in the numbering down here because there's a 125 and a 125. That's the architects being squirrely. Plot room's 125. That's them just being inconsistent. But I'm gonna follow whatever they've got for now, and that's okay. But now you can take this model and you can begin to actually divide these up into zones however it is you see fit. And I'm set for engineering. You can do your analysis, you can start doing your engineering layouts, you can do whatever you need. This is 1 hour. Actually, it was exactly 51 minutes from start to finish pretty much. We did, and because I was talking a lot, I was a little slower, but we did a full project setup. And it's now ready to do design at this point with every view that I'm going to need for the floor plans throughout the life cycle of the project. That's incredibly efficient. So that saves tons and tons of time. And again, this methodology can be used for all disciplines across the industry. So with that, for those of you watching this as the recording, we hope you found this valuable as a recording. We hope you can use this and some of the links to the other really detailed videos to help you more efficiently set up your projects and really be able to kind of kick off your MEP starter projects or any discipline for that matter in the most efficient way possible and have success throughout the entire life cycle of your project. We do hope to see you in future CTC webinars, so definitely check out our events page to know when those are coming up as well.